This is a video that will attempt to show structures on the moon. We go into Google Earth, we then click into Google Moon. The current UFO literature states that the moon has an atmosphere of 2 miles, and on the far side there's a vegetation, but on the side that faces the Earth it's very bright and luminous, and very small amounts of vegetation exists. Normally there's a filter mechanism. When you zoom in anywhere on the moon, you can see the craters, but when you get close to about 2 or 3 kilometers, that's where your resolution stops. So from very high up, we're about 90 kilometers now, we see the craters, we zoom in, and that's all we think we're meant to see. One satellite flew over 2009, Kaguya satellite, Kaguya, which took high resolution images, and we see areas of high resolution images in the Tychos crater and a very old crater which has lava flows in it called Mare, M-A-R-E, Moscoviense. So we'll zoom into the Tychos crater first. So again, to the untrained eye, the moon just looks full of craters. NASA tells us it's no atmosphere, there's no chance of life happening there. What NASA has not told us is that it's found evidence of ancient civilizations there. The first evidence was when Apollo 8 went on the far side of the moon, and just when it returned and the radio had clearance with Earth, the first message was, "You will be informed there is a Santa Claus," and that was code for alien civilization or alien structures. So we'll zoom in now to Tychos, and we'll zoom into the Tychos crater. So from very high up, you'll see that the resolution is very clear in this specific area of the Tychos crater, and just around there the resolution stops at again 2 or 3 kilometers. So these structures in theory could be all around the moon, and the moon, which resembles a planet more than an asteroid or a captured moon that impacted into the Earth, is perfectly round and could have sustained millions of inhabitants. And you'll see remnants of this ancient civilization, which is very hard to predict the age of it because there's no hurricanes or storms to cause erosion. So here we have a town where you see a lot of towers happening, rectangular structures. NASA has attempted to blur this out. You can see an area cut into the crater down there. We're about 500 meters above ground level, and you'll see evidence of there. Most of the structures are actually tower structures that are about 60-70 meters high. That's about 15-20 stories. They then jump up to about 110 meters, which is about 35 stories. You'll see a tower happening in this area here as well, but that's been heavily blurred. And courtyards which are actually seem to be cut into the rock face. You see 2 towers there, evidence of a building, and quite a few rectangular structures which have been blurred. There's a very large structure there, very large tower happening in that area as well. There's no evidence of vegetation, everything's perfectly grey, but again evidence of towers here that have been blurred. One tower there, that's 120 meters high, that's about 40 stories. Shadow. When you zoom into the there's evidence of towers there. When you actually zoom into the towers, there is no evidence of windows or anything like that. Here we have a little town happening here. You've got towers, rectangular wall structures, towers there, rectangles. This area has been also blurred as well. The evidence of a small town in that area as well. We then zoom into this area. This is more clearer. You'll see evidence of these towers. Shadows, they're about 80 meters high. Rectangles. The whole hilly area was once obviously a thriving community. Again, it's very hard to predict how long ago this happened, because the moon is devoid of most elements that we have on Earth that would cause erosion, and there's a row of towers that have been blurred. We'll see 3 towers here happening. It's about 80 meters high. Actually, I'll use a ruler on this, but I previously measured all the heights. That's about 80 meters, and shadows, that's about 20 stories. You'll see all the excavations here, walls, towers up there as well, and NASA has done a very good job of trying to blur it, but it can't be totally successful. The tallest is that tower there. It's about 100 meters. That one. Smaller walls, zigzag structures, all evidence of an ancient, advanced civilization. Again, you see twin towers here. They're about 50 meters. Shadows, towers, walls. These are very tall towers that have escaped the sensors. They're about 120 meters, which is about 40 stories. Very long shadow. It's in the canyon, and there's quite a few towers on the edges of the canyon. So it's very common on all the architecture to have these towers on edges of craters or canyons. Quite a few there that have been blurred out. And the rumour is the same is happening on Venus, but NASA's told us it's a very hot environment full of sulfuric acid. But many people point out that at 900 degrees, how did the parachute open for the Venus probe, which landed without a problem and took pictures of the rock face? So Venus is also the home of a thriving population. I'm not sure if they're still there or not. Same as the moon. We'll see areas of architecture there, big towers, walls, especially that structure around there. And this has been blurred, but the images, you can still work out the structures happening here. And NASA was shocked. They can't tell us, obviously this has been found. Too many people would be shocked that we aren't alone, and it's very closer than we think. And there could be still aliens, obviously, on the far side. And the UFO literature was the Apollo astronauts were warned to keep away. We've got large towers here, 140 meters. We've got many rock face structures, walls, excavations, square buildings, towers mostly. Obviously it all can't be blurred, so you have to go in and hunt these structures. The most obvious ones are blurred, but you can tell from this educational video how to spot the structures. And again, there are mostly towers, like towers here at 100 meters. You'll see the shadows. Some towers underneath, squares. Again, there was a thriving population. We'll now zoom into this area. We have smaller towers happening here. Again, these have been blurred, a little bit large towers. That area was blurred heavily. This area here is a bit less blurred. You'll see a tower happening here. It's about 80 meters. Towers here that have been blurred. And again, this is all a long process of just scanning the surface. That area there is a square wall. You've got about 1, 2, 3, 4 towers. excavations, rectangles, large towers here, and again all very blurred. Again, we've got censorship here, but you can still make out the towers and the shadows, the square structures, rectangular structures. These are very large towers here and buildings. Again, this was a very thriving town. Evidence of towers and structures here. These are towers and courtyards. The same could be on Mars as well, because all the resolution stops at about 2 or 3 kilometers, and NASA won't permit us to actually go this close to the ground and see the structures there. And yet they've got crystal clear images. We've got rectangles, towers happening in this area as well. So this was a very big, thriving community. Tower there. This is a bit more clearer. You'll see excavations there, squares, that tower structure there, one tower there, shadows. It seems to be cut into the surface. The actual walkways are cut in. There's 2 towers there that are blurred. And they're probably about 60, 70 meters tall, which is about 15 stories. Towers, squares, rectangles, shadows, excavated areas. It seems as though the courtyards and walls are actually cut into the landscape. You've got towers happening here, 2 there, towers and buildings. We next go down to the next group of images for Tycho. There's a nice tower, square structures, walls, buildings. This is a bit a darker area, shadows. You'll see the 60 meter tall tower. We'll just zoom in. We're about 2.9 kilometers off the surface. You'll see towers there. They've been blurred. Shadows. There's a group of about 4 towers, and that's about 100 meters or 30 stories. Again, you'll see buildings on the corner, on the hill, square structures, towers. There's a very tall tower happening there. Many towers and walls and buildings here which all haven't been blurred out. It's very clear to see. So that area is quite easy to spot what's there. There seems to be a group of towers happening in this area here. They're about 70 meters tall. As we zoom in, straight away you'll see the square structures, rectangles, evidence of a little town here as well. The towers here were blurred around these areas. The landscape is very barren. There's no vegetation to be seen, but there's plenty of vegetation at Mare Moscoviense. So we'll see evidence of towers here, shadows, walls, zigzag structures. They're about 80 meter towers.